a series that took itself too seriously, a series so pretentious, it seemingly forgot what it set off to accomplish. Death and Other Details fared decently, being the fourth most streamed original television series across platforms in the United States 13 days after premiering. Even now, the show maintains a 66% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, which is generous. As a lover of the Knives Out series, I was ecstatic for a new detective to come around, and initially, it worked. I enjoyed the casting of Mandy Patinkin, the vibrancy and color palettes of the show, but as we progressed, things started to get weird. You see, in mediums like film, movie, and theater, there's a concept known as the suspension of disbelief. In scientific terms, your prefrontal cortex that is responsible for decision-making and rational thinking takes a little nap. Simultaneously, your limbic system, which governs emotions, lights up and starts to override rational skepticism, making you more susceptible to accept a narrative premise. This complete immersion is something we've all exercised, whether it was accompanying Dorothy through the Emerald City or believing winter was in fact coming. We've all been willing to dive into worlds that completely defy all reality for the sake of entertainment. So throughout this video, I will be referencing Susie Woltman's How to Make Audiences Suspend Their Disbelief. In her article, she denotes 3 basic rules a story needs to follow to keep audiences engaged and loyal. Number 1, avoid plot holes. Number 2, make it relatable. And number 3, keep it consistent. Death and Other Details successfully broke all 3. So, I do not plan on doing a recap of the show, as that will take a lengthy amount of time, and there are already YouTubers doing God's work and have provided detailed summaries of each episode. Instead, I want to focus on where the magic was lost. Starting with number 1, avoiding plot holes. Think on some of the more successful murder mysteries out there and common tropes writers utilize. That light bulb moment followed by the big reveal. All the key players are in a room, and the detective pieces all the parts together, and our questions are all solved.
It was a complicated genius, but why?
Unfortunately, this series was so convoluted, it is no wonder it had an excessive amount of plot holes and questions that left the audiences scratching their heads. For example, how old was Llewellyn? Dude never aged a day from a flashback that took place 50 years ago. Is he some kind of vampire? Perhaps that was another plot twist they plan on doing the next season. Honestly, who knows at this rate? The same people who wanted Kira's character dead are the ones who hired the world's best detective to figure out her death. Was Kira planning to execute her daughter at their dinner during their ski trip? Or does she just always keep that thing on her? The FBI arrested Kira, but not her right-hand man?
Have any control here?
And lastly, whose fucking body did they find at random at the ski resort, falling from the fucking sky? People, this is lazy storytelling 101. Number 2, make it relatable. Susie mentions for us to relate to characters that are far beyond the scope of our own. Knowing their wants, needs, and arcs keeps us invested. Writers should aim to craft emotions and situations that us audiences can relate to, or at very least, understand the motives of our characters. Like for a while, I really appreciated Anna's character. A hard-working, ambitious woman, she was the apparent heir to the Collier Mills Company, and she stuck beside her woman despite her wife losing her marbles. But then they had her off her mother, and that kind of just threw off her character. You know, typical things that they did throughout the series to completely ruin it. Girl, it just did not work. Alright, 10 episodes, each 40 to 50 minutes apiece, roughly 16 main characters, and the writers had the opportunity to really flesh out these characters and just give us something to root for. You see, a good writer can make even some of the most despicable characters at least relatable. Take, for instance, the beloved Tony Soprano, a thief and murderous mobster who audiences not only loved, but we actively rooted for this guy. Until The Sopranos, mobsters were always portrayed as very heartless individuals. But my man's Tony was built different. He loved being a father. He regularly attended therapy. He felt his emotions. And he had a terrible upbringing, so we sympathized for how it shaped him as a man. The opportunities were there. The time was there. Instead, the only intimate details we ever got was the portrayal of our characters' sexual affairs. Number 3, keep it consistent. This is by far where the offenses were the most egregious. So I actually rewatched the series for this video specifically, and I noticed so much more than I did the first time. I mean, as most tend to do. However, I am a bit on the slow side, so it wasn't until this time that I did pick up on some off-the-wall consistency issues. For example, Imogen is pegged to be this all-seeing and knowledgeable individual despite not having a real job or any credentials. And within the first episode, an 11-year-old Imogen is able to crack a seasoned detective's personal code within seconds of it being explained because she's able to decode his primer. Simultaneously, this girl who sees things others do not, does not recognize her own mother in a blonde wig and contacts. And you got Rufus, who's called out multiple people for their accents.
Your accent? Wickham Abbey?
Curious. Where you swallow your R's. You're middle class.
But doesn't call out Kira for arguably the most horrific Swedish accent known to man?
Body Mr. Danny Turner, alias Keith Trubisky. I'm assisted by...
Come on, man. I had actually read that viewers began debating whether AI generated this script for how unthoughtful it was. From the refugee subplot to the lack of officers, medical professionals. I mean, I don't even think we saw a captain on this billion-dollar ship. And then we also saw a billion-dollar check being cleared within a matter of minutes on a ship in the middle of the godforsaken ocean, the same ship that never docked after like 3 murders occurred aboard. So, yeah. And I say those things because murder mysteries tend to rely on a slighter, greater level of suspension of disbelief, considering they often operate in a reality that's similar to ours. But this reality was never fully developed, and therefore consistency was never achieved. A lack of consistency can not only ruin a script, but it has even ruined legendary and reputable franchises. Think of the third installments of both the Godfather and Alien series. Ladies and gentlemen, I know I was harsh, but I'm surely not the only person who held this sentiment. The series was ultimately canceled after its very first season. Despite what we all thought would be a new murder mystery favorite, broke some fundamental screenwriting rules, therefore failing to captivate and maintain its audiences. But am I wrong? Do you feel the same? Please let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear your opinions on this show, and I really look forward to seeing you again in 2 weeks.